Welcome back for the third Sunday of Lent. I want to confess that I inserted that Mary Oliver poem, When I Am Among the Trees, as a corrective to Jesus always in a hurry to cut down that fig tree. Now, Luke's version of the cursing of the fig tree story is a pinch softer than Mark's and Matthew's version, but only by a season if the poor little thing doesn't start producing fruit. The message from Luke here, because of the way that he has edited this story together, appears to be that we better repent and produce fruit or we're going to die. But as we know, we're going to die anyway, whether we are more fruitful or not. Now, it's a strange passage, and I am just going to leave it there in the shadow of Mary Oliver's wonderful poem about trees. Don't cut down that tree, Jesus, please. Instead, I want to turn our attention to this Exodus story. I am so excited that one of my last sermons gets to be on this crucial, amazing, and fantastically revelatory story from Exodus. If you can't tell, I'm excited about it. It's a really easy story because it's all low-hanging fruit. It's a tree of knowledge just swollen with abundant yield, weighing down its branches so that you can simply pass by and harvest it. For most of it, we don't have to know any background at all to decipher its wisdom. Just read it. Although there is a couple of juicy tidbits that aren't obvious, like that first line, which reads, Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian. Now, Moses is married to someone who's not the same ethnic or religious group as him. That becomes an embarrassment later on in the Bible when Israelites are told only to marry other Israelites. It's a rebuttal to anyone, anytime, promoting ethnic and racial segregation. It's right there at the very beginning of our whole story. But even beyond poking any nascent xenophobia or racism, it also ruins any notion of sectarianism, as in, our religion is the only religion. Because you see, Mount Horeb, or also called Mount Sinai in these stories, is the place where Moses meets God. God, as we call him, Yahweh. Horeb refers to the sun, and Sinai refers to the moon. So calling the place the sun and the moon, the place of the sun and the moon, is a compelling story. But add to that the place is already, before Moses ever gets there, referred to as the mountain of God. Even before Moses trips over the burning bush, it's thought to be a sacred space. Clearly, it was a place holding religious significance long before the beginning of Judaism, and with a God that was around and known by pagans before it was known by Jews or Christians or Muslims. So, just in the first sentence, the story kicks down the door on the worst proclivities of religion. It is as if to say, forget race and ethnicity and creed, you boneheads, your petty little prejudices must be left at the door along with your shoes. So the rest of this is just obvious for anyone who wants to take the time to read it a little carefully. Moses clearly doesn't know anything about the holy when he runs into the bush. What he sees is that remarkable sight of a fire that doesn't consume. What a great new renewable energy source. If he were an Exxon executive or Elon Musk, Moses would have bought that piece of land and figured out how to develop it to scale. Moses has no idea he is in the presence of God. He says to himself, now, what is this? And he heads straight for it without an inkling of reverence or awe or danger. But the voice calls out from the bush with urgency, Moses, Moses! And Moses answers, whether inadvertently or by grace, the way that the servants and the prophets of God are supposed to answer. Well, here am I. And then God gives Moses the ground rules for a human coming into contact with the holy. First, keep your distance. Second, take off your shoes. Third, which Moses knew instinctively and didn't have to be told, don't look directly at God. Then God gives Moses an intimate profile of the creator of all that is. God says, and we would normally just read through these words without too much interest, but you'll see what I mean that's special here. God says, I've seen the misery of my people. I've heard the cries of their suffering at the hands of the oppressors. I know their suffering. And now I am present with the gift of liberation for them. We'll get to the therefore in a moment. But let's just stutter over that revelation of divine nature for a moment. Now, I don't know if you believe in God or in any sense feel as if you have known or bumped up into or brushed into God, but isn't that exactly what you would hope for from the one who created us? To see, to hear, to know, to be present. It is in our nature to prefer a magic genie in a bottle to answer our every question and fulfill our every wish, but that's not the God of the cosmos who is capable and passionate enough to big bang this whole masterpiece into existence. You know as well as I do that whether we are enveloped in joy or consumed with suffering, the thing we want and need most is the sense that someone who loves us is simply present, seeing and hearing and somehow knowing what we are experiencing. You and I can endure or enjoy almost anything if we have only that one thing, someone to be present, to see and hear and know what we are experiencing. I think that's what's stunning about this very ancient story that introduces God for us for the first time. Not only does it introduce us to God, it introduces us to ourselves. But hold on, there's more. Moses isn't all about it. Remember, he is a fugitive for murder in Egypt. He's got a price on his head, and he's going to lose his head if he goes back to Egypt. So he gets coy. Okay, that's a really great offer, whoever you are, but who am I, a lowly shepherd, to go before Pharaoh and lead those slaves away? We don't have the entire story before us today, but in it, Moses comes up with 5 excuses not to go. He's dancing and doing a little sidestep as fast as his little feet will carry him. He wants to know God's name. He frames it as a necessary introduction to the Israelites who don't know Moses from Adam, pun intended. But what he really wants to know is which God he's talking to and what that God's power is. Moses knows that Pharaoh's a god and a god with a massive army and a whole bunch of scary priests and shamans. So if he's going to go up against Pharaoh, Moses needs to know what kind of firepower he's got backing him up. To know one's name is to know one's power. That's an ancient idea, and I think it still lingers a little bit anyway these days. So Moses asks God for a name, pretending it will be needed as an introduction to the Israelites. In so many ways, God has already told Moses who God is. The God of his ancestors. In other words, the God who was around long before Moses and long before Moses' people. And God has told Moses the divine nature, which is to see and to hear and to know and to be present with those who suffer. So God responds curtly and to the point. I am who I am. Or as also is translated, because we don't really know for certain, I will be who I will be. Now, don't ask if this story is factual. Nobody knows that. But we do know it's true because we've experienced it. We know it's true that we need to be seen and heard and understood and accompanied by the presence of someone or someones who love us. That's just bedrock. And we know it's true that even if God appeared in some wacko mystical form like an angel or a seraphim or a burning bush, asking us right here and right now to go and do whatever God is asking, that we would start dancing, tap dancing too. And we'd come up with excuses why we shouldn't be the one. And finally, if you have ever had even an inkling that there is a God, then you know it's true that above all else, God is present and hears our cries and knows our suffering even before we've suffered it. A God who created all of this and us too holds within it all that suffering. And so must be a God who suffers too. It's a remarkable story, really it is. It holds stunning wisdom, whether or not it's factual. And you know, that's something that has kept me coming back, these many years to biblical stories, 45 years in fact, just like an old dog coming home. If you had told me that a young Cam Miller, even the one who went to seminary and was ordained a priest at age 26, that he would spend his life digging through the Bible for wisdom and truths, he would have laughed in your face. Now I'm just grateful for having had the privilege. Peace be with you.